smart sustainable island communities. And the first speaker of today is Giuseppina Vacca, that will present a paper co-authored with Silvana Grillo and Elisa Piglia from Cairo University. The paper from positive knowledge and management of the cultural heritage that has studied of the Beata Vergine Assunta Basilica in Guasila, Sardinia. So, Giuseppina, the floor is yours. You have all the time that you need because there are only three speakers, so if you want all the time that you want, not too much, but.
Thank you, Chiara. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Giuseppina Vacca, and I'm from University of Cagliari. Our work related to protocols knowledge for the restoration, documents geomatics and diagnostic in the case of the Adaptative Assunta in Basila. So, in the last years in Italy, the conservation of the historical architectural heritage has become one of the central problems within the scientific community of architects, restorers, engineers, structural engineers, and so on. But many buildings are in condition of precarious state of conservation. So we asked ourselves a question: can the transdisciplinary approach provide a valuable aid to the study of cultural heritage for their conservation, enhancement, and restoration? So our goal is this. So we study an approach transdisciplinary for the Basilica of the Beata Vergine Assunta, with historians, geomatics, surveyors, architects, petrographers, and engineers, are involved in the 4-day restoration. The results were fundamental basis for the last intervention of the subject and the extraordinary maintenance of the monument implemented in 2019 and still in progress. So, in this picture, you can see the Basilica. The Basilica is a neoclassic monument designed by the local architect Gaetano Cima in the middle 19th century. Since its construction, this monument has shown a sign of decay and structural failure, such as crack or infiltration. The church is similar at the Pantheon in Rome, and it has a beautiful dome wall painting. In this picture, you can see the crack on the walls, on the other parts of the church. So, the transdisciplinary protocol of the knowledge of the cultural heritage carried out on this field research: documentation, geometric survey, petrography study, structural study, geophysics study, also all to the final restoration design. Documentation. The first step was the study of the documents, and this step has been essential to reveal the controversial construction history of the Basilica. It was built on the ruins of a previous church, and as already known, characterized by several building issues the full quality of craftsmanship and materials used. Three archives concerning documents, photographs, and iconographies were constructed in order to reconstruct historical events related to the monument. From this study, we know that the construction site started in 1842 and a first restoration did in 1897, after 50 years to the construction. So, other restoration in 1988 and in 1993. The second step is the geometric survey. I'm teaching geomatics, so this part is my part in this work. To geometric survey, we used two techniques, geometric technique. Terrestrial laser scanner and close range photogrammetry. These techniques were used alone and integrated for the metric dimensional survey and the 3D model of the church. In particular, the internal and external building were surveyed with the terrestrial laser scanner. The close range photogrammetry was used for the internal 3D survey of the dome. The need of this integration was to improve the texture of the 3D survey of the dome and its painting. For the terrestrial laser scanner, we used a focus 3D. Focus 3D is a laser scanner for the physically architecture or building. It has a range 0.6 and 120 meters, and with an error of about 2 millimeters for scanner object with a distance between 10 and 25 meters. The scanner were processed using the JRS reconstructor software by a software house, Italian software house. We did 41 internal scans and 23 external scans with overlap between the scans about 30%, with a resolution of 7 millimeters. In this picture you can see the position of the terrestrial scanner, and for the external scans we used a crane where put the terrestrial scanner. In this picture you can see this crane. The goal point of the church georeference with 20 control points in the ATRF 2000 reference system with GNS survey with FTK. In this picture, it's possible to see the 3D model in front of the church and reveal the church. From the 3D model, we extracted the whole horizontal section, vertical section, or two photos, okay, to prepare the output for the restoration project and for the structural structure analysis. The close-range photogrammetry was used exclusively to survey the dome. You can see the painting on the dome. It's very important, the texture on the 3D model, in this case, for studying also the painting. So we used a digital camera, Canon EOS M3 with a sensor CMOS with 3.7 millimeter dimension of the pixel. We used a metal shape by Agisoft for the processing of image. The metal shape is a software with approach structure from motion for multi-image photogrammetry. This picture, you can see me when I take the photo on a platform elevator, and in this picture it's possible to see the details of the painting. We took 97 images of the dome, and this processed with medium mode shape, and we have a 3D model with point cloud with 11 million points, and the processing time is about 6 hours. Another step, very important, also this step to study the history of the basilic is diagnostic. Diagnostic analysis for materials used to construction and restoration of the basilic. This diagnostic consisted of the systematic study of natural and artificial materials used during the construction. All these materials study have allowed us to define the nature of materials, and so study their problem. In this picture, you can see the analysis of the plaster, of the materials, or in the part of the basilic where there were problems of humidity or infection. In conclusion, this approach has helped to outline the history of the basilic, to define its state of conservation with regard to geometries, construction techniques, and materials. To provide a valid knowledge base for future studies and for the preparation of a restoration project suited to the needs of the movement. From the documentation, we learn the information relating to the construction of the schedule from its origins today. From dramatic survey, it was possible to know the effective dimension of a monument, and it was possible to have a 3D model with high accuracy. With the integration of the 3D model with the structural study, it was possible to highlight that the monument is stable from a structural point of view, characterized by the presence of the widespread lesion, present for in correspondence of arcs and bolts, and other superficial behavior. From our study, was possible to do it to design the last intervention for safety and extraordinary maintenance of the Basilica of the Adaptative Assunta, concerning the problems that were still present in the monument, such as the arrangement of the dome, the rehabilitation of the recessive spokes, the rehabilitation of the mezzanino walls from humidity, the reconstruction of the roof covering on the connection with the tower, and appropriate natural and mechanical ventilation system against condensation. That's all, and thank you for attention.
Thank you so much to Giuseppina. Do you have any question? So we can go on. Thank you so much. And the next speaker is Valeria Sayou from Cairo University, and she will present a paper written for author with Ivan Lecic, and the title is SDGs Implementation in Italy, a comparative assessment of subnational strategies for sustainable development. So Valeria, are you with us? So the first is yours.
Thank you, Chiara. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Do you see my screen? Okay.
And we listen to you, and also we see your presentation.
Okay. The research SDGs implementation in Italy presented in this conference proposed a comparative assessment of 4 Italian subnational strategies for sustainable development. We recognize that these are important tool for the implementation on 2030 agenda that call for a local implementation of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And so this goal represents a framework for addressing the main global challenges, for example, poverty, climate change, food security, resource scarcity, environmental degradation, and other, that can be achieved by each member state through a process of SDGs localization that allow to move from global to the national and subnational level of government. And the next one, okay. And Italy, which is one of the world countries that have signed the 2030 agenda, have approved their national strategy for sustainable development in December 2017 for the period 2017-2030.
Valeria, I'm sorry if I interrupt now. Could you please speak louder?
I try.
I'm sorry. Okay, go on.
Okay. And the Italian national strategy have defined an integrated system of strategic priorities and objectives articulated into the 5 pillars of the 2030 agenda: people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. That must be achieved by Italian subnational governments through local adapted programs and intervention. Regions and autonomous province must adapt the national strategy to their context through local specific targets according to different territorial characteristics and priorities. Until now, 11 subnational strategies are formally approved, and 10 are under development. Given this scenario, the main research questions are about the systemic vision. Are all SDGs addressed by these subnational strategies? Balanced approach. Have all SDGs the same weight? Implementation mechanism. Are all SDGs associated with an adequate number of objectives? To answer this question, this research analyze and compare four selected subnational strategies developed by the autonomous province of Trento, Liguria, Marche, and Sardinia region, and highlight differences and similarities in approach and implementation mechanism. We can see the characteristics of these regions and subnational government in Italian. And these strategies are articulated in different level and are easily comparable regarding the structure, implementation mechanism, and monitoring procedures. And each of four strategies is articulated in strategic macro areas according to the criteria of the 2030 agenda, and the European cohesion policy for the period 2021-2027, and also for into local specific macro areas. For example, Marche region articulated the strategies into of 5 areas. There are resilience, climate change, ecosystem service, equity, sustainable, and economic development according their local context specific priorities. Each strategic macro area is divided in the theme or strategic choice and objectives. And for each of these objective implementation mechanism, for example, norms, plan, programs, and action, and procedures and indicator for monitoring and the impact of these tools are provided. In the next figure, you can see the results of the first level of evaluation regarding the relation between SDGs and different macro area of subnational strategies that allow to answer the first question. Are all SDGs addressed? Only the Sardinia strategy addressed all 17 SDGs. Market strategy don't consider the SDG 16, peace, justice, and strong institution, and the Liguria and Trento don't consider the SDGs 17, partnership for the goal. However, we can see that these two SDGs are implicitly linked to all strategies because these are developed through a multi-stakeholder consultation process according to different targets of this goal. It's interesting to note that only the Sardinia strategy has evaluated the contribution of all strategic macro areas in the achievement of SDGs 16 and 17. Overall, in general, the analysis show different weights are seen to different SDGs, but we point out that the SDGs 11, sustainable city and communities, and the SDGs 8, decent work and economic growth, are the most prevailing goals. And all the 5 macro area of the Sardinian Trento strategies contribute to achieve the SDGs, the SDG 11. In this slide, we show the result of the analysis correlation between the objective outlined by the 4 selected strategies and SDGs. Also, in this case, the prevailing goal are the SDG 11 and SDGs 8, but also SDGs 9 and 12 and 15 are very considered. And so we move to the final consideration. As the picture show, the analysis highlight similarities and differences between in the SDGs implementation of the 4 analyzed subnational strategies. but at the same time, the proposed methodology allow also a fine-grained analysis that point out the discrepancies between general strategic structure and specific objective. Here you can see the detail of each macro area and related objective expressed in a percentage of total. And for example, in Sardinia strategy, despite there are general interest in SDGs for quality education, only 29% of objective declare an impact on this goal. Similar for SDGs 11, 16, 17. And so, concluding, this research provide a first detail inside of the SDGs implementation strategies in Italy and try to contribute to the knowledge in the field of the strategic and operational planning and design related to sustainable development. The comparative analysis proposed in this research of the sample of strategies provide a guide for the adaptation of global goal to local context and for evidence-based initiative for example, policies, programs, plan, and projects, and different best practices that can be revised and applied to other territorial realities to achieve specific SDGs. Finally, this study aimed at bringing attention to the potential value of the comparative analysis of different strategies for sustainable development for stimulating the dialogue between different governments in order to expand their knowledge and minimize cost and optimizing results to accelerate effort to build strong governance mechanism. Thank you very much for your attention. I have concluded.
Thank you so much, Valeria. I have just, there are any questions? I have just a curiosity. Could you listen to me?
Low.
You listen to me?
Yeah.
Okay, I have just a curiosity. Which is for you the best region, if there is a best region?
The best?
Region that you analyze.
Okay. Among the analyzed?
Yeah.
I think that, okay. If you see this slide, according the proposed analysis, Sardinia region is one of the best region because consider all SDGs and propose a very lot set of implementation mechanism, also guideline for operational intervention. For example, many action related to the project, but also the planning, for example. And so we can study other strategies, but about this core is one of the best region.
Thank you so much, Valeria.
Thank you, Chiara.
There are other questions? Okay, no? I think that was not. So thank you so much. And we go to the next speaker. The next speaker is Arnas. I'm sorry for my really bad pronunciation. Arnas Mayumba. Okay. And he will present the paper Sustainable Building Material, recycled cute fiber composite mortar for thermal structural retrofitting. And the paper was written with Flavio Stocchino, Gianfranco Licia, Monica Valdez, Fernando Fraternali, and Martinelli, all from the University of Cagliari.
No, Cagliari is Salerno.
Yes, Salerno. Oh, a really bad presentation, I'm sorry. So the process is yours.
Okay, good afternoon, respected professors, my dear colleagues and friends. My name is Arnas Majumdar. Currently, I am pursuing PhD from the University of Salerno, and the argument today which I am presenting it has been developed with the collaboration of University of Calgary. And the argument you are seeing is a recycled wood fiber composite motor, mainly used for thermal and structural retrofitting. This is a framework of my today's speech, and I would like to start with the introduction. Thereafter, I will talk a little bit the background of our research work, then the main argument of this paper, and of course, then conclusion from myself. Here you can see the census done by the government of India in 2011. According to this census, there about 47% of the total Indian population was living in this kind of houses, as you can see in the pictures. And according to the European standards or person who are living in Europe, these standards are very poor, pathetic, or even unlivable. In 2022, certainly this number will be a little bit lesser, but still a significant amount of people are still living in this kind of houses. If you go to the maybe slum area or in the villages. So our research group or our research activity what is promoting the locally available raw materials for preparation of new smart building materials for building houses in these areas. Now, if we go in the scientific community or if we talk among ourselves, even today I heard during one conference that people only talk about the smart city. To create more smart cities or to convert older cities into the smart cities, but no one talk about the smart village or to convert villages into a smarter villages with more sustainable, affordable, and healthy living conditions. As we have seen in the previous picture, there is a disparity between the city and the villages. If the people living in the villages they are not happy, so even if we build smart cities, we can't achieve our goal. So through our project work directly or indirectly, we are helping or promoting the United Nations Sustainable Goal, touching the point 3, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 16, as you can see. Now, I'd like to talk about a little bit European context. Near about 85% of the total European building stocks are built before 2001, and now, as I'm coming from Italy, in Italy also there are about 57% of the total buildings, resident buildings are masonry buildings, and they don't follow any anti-seismic or energetic standards. Therefore, they are more vulnerable to the natural disasters, especially earthquake, and of course, they are also not energy efficient. Therefore, the dual building strategy to be very good to help both the seismic and energetic standard. Therefore, we have studied, keeping in mind the rural and urban issues, the thermomechanical behavior of the new wood fiber composite mortars, and secondly, the thermostructural behavior of the composite masonry wall system, of course, retrofitted with the wood fiber products. We'll see next all the products. Our research work focuses to develop full-purpose integrated retrofitting material. I already have told that it is a smart and green material which could be used for building newer and healthy houses in villages like in India, or dual retrofitting purposes like structural or thermal retrofitting in the cities like in Italy or in Europe. Now, our research work has three phases. In the first phase, we have studied the physical and mechanical behavior of the wood fiber and frames. And if you would like to know more about this argument, the results, you can go through the paper which I have mentioned below. And based on this result, we have developed the second phase. In the second phase, we have developed the composite mortar samples, which with the jute fibers with different combinations of percentage and fiber lengths. With with the first and second phase knowledge, we have gone to the third phase, that is integrated retrofitting the machinery buildings. The argument which I'm presenting today, it has been developed and it was not in our mind, but we have developed it because we had a lot of scrap or the leftovers from the net fabrication. So we thought, why not to use this for recycling and preparing new composite materials with this. Now, the raw materials we have imported from India, from my, of course, from my state, that is West Bengal. That is jute fiber, raw jute fiber, and jute threads. The two types of jute thread we have used, and we have nominated them class 1 millimeter and class 2 millimeter, as you can see. This nomination has been done based on the measured diameters of the samples. And we have noticed that class 1 millimeter is a better performer. Why? Because their tensile strength is they are about twice than that of the class 2 millimeter. Therefore, we have chosen the class 1 millimeter thread to prepare the jute nets. Here you can see the jute net preparation. This is me, of course, and we have prepared two type of nets and the two mesh configurations. And during this process, a lot of scraps or the leftovers were there, so we have collected them and we have recycled them. So here you can see the retrofitting of the machinery building structure, machinery wall structure, and the left side you can see these structures have been used for the structural test, whereas the right side we have used for the thermal conductance measurement test. And the argument which we are presenting in this conference only touches the part that recycled jute fiber composite motor for the thermal and structural mechanical retrofitting. And in this process, we have used the motor and jute fibers. The motor which we have used, you can see the small insulation materials already presented, is prefabricated, and we have separated them from the main, and we have used only the motor. And the recycled jute fiber is mixed with the separated mortar with the adequate amount of water to prepare the mechanical and thermal samples. Why we have done this? We, of course, improve the sustainability of the whole project process and reduce the carbon footprint. Now, as we all know that plastic box, this insulation material which was prefabricated were the plastic box. So they are not, of course, not eco-friendly. Whereas the jute fibers are biodegradable, recyclable, of course, very cheaply available in the Asian market or like in India, Bangladesh, even in Brazil. Here you can see you are seeing a typical thermal sample where you can see the embodied recycled net fibers, and these fibers don't have any specific length because their length varies from 5 millimeters to about 50 millimeters, and also there are some knots were present because it was recycled. Now, after 28 days of drying or curing period, the flexural test and the thermal conductivity test were conducted. Here you can see two typical examples of two samples. One, this side without fiber, and the left side with 6.5% of the recycled jute net fibers. And the sample without fiber, it has shown a fragile behavior, whereas the sample with the fiber has shown the ductile behavior. After the sample without fiber, after reaching the flexural limit, has broke immediately. Whereas the sample with the jute net fiber, even if it broke, but it helped in keeping the two blocks together. Now, here you can see two videos of two samples, one without fiber. You see it broken immediately, but the other one is even after breaking, still continuing to hold two pieces. It don't break, it don't collapse completely. Here you can see the strain energy graph of the two samples, one without fiber and other one with 6.5% of fiber, and we have observed near about 600 plus. improvement of strain energy. And this strain is very significant uh, because it can absorb and dissipate the seismic energy. So it can be very much useful for the seismic zone. And why it happened? Because the fiber, important fibers, they help in absorbing and distributing the energy. Here you can see the thermal sample, which is of course without plastic ball because I already have mentioned that we are removing it. And in the place we have put the jute net fiber, recycled fiber, and before the test we have put inside the oven for drying because we have removed the moisture, humidity from the sample because the presence of moisture influences the measurement. This is the heat flow meter in which we have tested all the samples, and you can see the sample is put inside the chamber, and it has been surrounded by a wooden heat guard. And why is it good? Because we wanted to have a uniform and monodirectional heat flow, and this heat guard also helped in avoiding the heat losses to the edges. And of course, on the top you can see the schematic diagram of the chamber. Certainly, hot plate, cold plate, and of course, there are other instruments on it. The result obtained in the thermal conductivity result is very positive. In all the points, we have obtained positive result. The results are not good. And you see here this -7 means this is the improvement, 7% improvement of the thermal conductivity. So therefore, with the implementation of the Unit 5, we have improved the insulation capacity of the material. Now, in conclusion, I would like to say that although we got the flexible strength is a bit lesser, near about 50%, but the strain energy improved near about 600%. Whereas also the thermal conductivity improved by near about 7%. So we are getting a dual positive effect. And of course, as already I have mentioned, our objective always is to promote the locally available raw materials to use them for making more smarter, greener building materials to be used for making a smart or a healthy house for villagers in a village, and also use the same material for the integrated retrofitting or thermal structural retrofitting for the city, buildings in the cities. Therefore, of course, if you see, our material will bring a balanced global sustainable growth and development. And at the end, I'd like to also highlight that we are also planning to go ahead with other composite materials, which will be the same, not jute, but maybe other fibers and other binding material from other local places. So this is our small group. We have worked together and from University of Calgary and Solano, and we have developed this project. And a few more papers we are publishing very soon. Thank you for your patience sharing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes. If you have any questions from the audience, from home? No. Okay, thank you so much. And the last speaker is not present, so thank you so much for having attended this workshop, and see you the next session with in the different rooms. Thank you so much. Just
Se pronunciare in Bengal is hormones. Se deve pronunciare in bengalese, hormones. Uh, Hello. Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Hello, can you hear me? Hello.
Hello, I can hear you.
Hello.
I can hear you.
I heard you. Okay, perfect. Well, the chair of this session is Danny Breitman, but I cannot see him here, so I become the chair. Well, the first work to be present is design and implementation of an efficient priority queue data structure. And the presenter, I guess, is James Rhodes, who is present in this room, and Ellis the Donker. So, James,
Yes.
when you want. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. So how do I start sharing my screen here? Let's see. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. All right. So are we ready? Are we ready to go?
Yeah, when you want.
Okay. All right. I'll get started. Okay. I'd like to thank the International Conference for allowing me to present my paper today. I work with this paper, on this paper with Dr. Elise the Doctor. We are both with Western Michigan University in Kalamazoo, Michigan. She's a professor. I am a PhD student, of which she is my chair of my committee. And so we're working on a design and implementation of an efficient priority queue data structure. And I'd like to explain how it works in the results that we noticed compared to a min or max heap. Okay, so the outline is I'll start with an introduction, and then I'll talk about the implementation, which we used two applications to experiment with or test with. And one is the adaptive multivariate integration and also the 15 puzzle. I will talk about the results and then mention the conclusions that we reached from our research. So priority queues are among the most useful of all data structures, but existing priority queues have a vast amount of overhead associated with them. So we identified a need to have a simple data structure that can be used as a priority queue with low overhead. And so we developed a bucket data structure that we believe will satisfy this need. Heaps require, hang on one second, turn off the air conditioner. Okay, sorry about that. So heaps require constant data manipulation in order to maintain the heap property. The heap property guarantees that the children of the children keys of any node are less than or greater than the parent key for a min or a max heap, respectively. So this maintenance is to satisfy this property when both inserting and deleting data. We call this process heapify, and the objective of our data structure is to improve the CPU time by eliminating this heapify process of manipulating data in order to maintain this heap property where the children are either less or greater or not less or not greater than their parent for heaps to maintain their big O log n time complexity. Many applications that utilize a heap insert an enormous number of items with the same or similar key. And so each of these items are stored in a separate node. When a node is deleted from a heap, the heapify process basically takes the data element in the last entry, which is the rightmost leaf node, puts it in the root, and then kind of recursively moves that node down through the heap until it is reaches its proper place on the heap. And this is to maintain that heap property. So our data structure, I don't know why this keeps jumping to the end. So, and a similar process occurs when a node is inserted as well. So if a heap has millions of nodes, this could take up a great deal of CPU time. The smaller the number of nodes on the heap, the less time it takes to heapify. And so nodes with the same or similar value on a heap, if they were coalesced together, we believed and proved that it could be more efficient. So buckets were used to coalesce the nodes with the same or similar key value. So instead of putting a separate node on the heap, if a nodes had similar key values, we would put them together, and we used a linked list to maintain or keep track of those nodes that had the same priority. So the bucket may have many nodes in it, but it's organized as the linked list with only the head of the linked list residing on the heap. And the bucket point has a pointer to the head of the linked list. So many of nodes could be within a bucket, but if it were actually a heap and the time came to perform the heapify process, all these nodes would be moved as if they were just one node. So not only is the time spent to heapify lowered, but also the frequency to call the heapify process is lessened as well, because if there's more than one node in a bucket and it's time to delete that node, it's just deleted as from the head of the linked list, but no data manipulation is required as long as there's at least one more bucket or one more item in that bucket. Likewise, during insertion, if there's already a node in a particular bucket, the new insertion node being inserted is just added to the end of the list. So we use a hashing function to identify the bucket to place the node in, which of course has a big O of 1 time complexity, which is the fastest you can possibly get. We developed a priority queue data structure as a hash table to get rid of the heap altogether, eliminating this heapify process entirely. There could be a trade-off between the size of the buckets and a possible reduction in accuracy, but we'll talk, as we'll see later, that there wasn't a very big hit on the accuracy. The accuracy was maintained for both the applications that we tested upon, and the adapted multivariate integration is the one that we were more concerned about, because the error estimates must be deleted in decreasing order to avoid any accuracy degradation. So the adaptive multivariate application utilizes a max heap. The error estimate reference by index is used as the priority in which to position the index on the heap, and it has a double data type. Data structure stores a node according to its error. The bucket data structure does this as well. However, in order to ensure that we didn't have like millions of buckets, we actually used a precision of the mantissa and also the log of this error estimate, so that we could actually group similar items together. And this allowed us to maintain the number of buckets to carry out the operation. So this required us to create a 2-dimensional array of buckets, where the first dimension is the log 10 of the error estimate, and the second dimension is the mantissa according to 1 or up to 6 digits of precision. So using E sub A to denote the error estimate and M sub size for the required mantissa size, the exponent and mantissa are calculated as follows. I'll show the formula there. So for example, if an error estimate was 0.002316, the exponent would be 298, and the mantissa and the mantissa would be 2. And I didn't explain this, but in my paper, the reason why this is 298 is because we added 301 to the actual log 10 of the number to eliminate the possibility of a negative exponent being used as an index. So that's why that's 298. So the truncation of the error estimate according to the desired length of the precision is only for determining the bucket into which to place the item. The actual values are stored in the node and used in the application, so the error estimates are not affected. Okay, so the 15 puzzle application utilizes a min heap, and all key values within a bucket will be exactly the same for this application. The key values represent the cost of a state of the puzzle, and is used as the priority, with the smallest cost having the highest priority, because we're trying to find a solution as quickly as possible. And the cost is represented as an integer data type and used as an index into a one-dimensional array. The cost of a node equals the number of tiles that are not in the proper place plus the length of the path from the root of the state space tree to the node itself. Okay, so that talked about the implementation. Now we'll get into some of the results. So for the two applications, the behavior of the heap was observed. That was our main focus. Of course, accuracy. So testing was conducted with the original programs, which used a heap as a priority queue, and then another that used our bucket data structure. And we kept count and track of number of heap of all calls during the execution. And the total time spent on inserting deletions were recorded and compared as well. So here is the initial state that we used for the 15 puzzle test. And the results were the heap implementation created a heap with over 17 million individual nodes, and it executed over 8 million direct heapify calls when deleting, and it further made over 141 million recursive calls for a total of over 149 million calls to heapify. The bucket implementation had the 17 million nodes distributed only among 21 buckets. So the original program, and as an actual bonus for us, the original program took over 8 million iterations to find the solution state, where the program with the bucket data structure found the solution state in just over 7 million, which is over a million less iterations. And so the improvements that we see here, the total deletion time, the heap code took over 5 seconds. The bucket code took less than 1 second for over 85% improvement. And the total insertion time for the heap took close to 3 seconds, where the bucket code took only a little over 1 second for 58% improvement. Total insertion deletion time was over 8 seconds for the heap code and almost 2 seconds for the bucket code, for a total of 78% improvement. And total execution time for the puzzle instance with the heap code was over 22 seconds, where for the buckets it was almost close to 14 seconds for a 37.5% improvement. Now we get to the results for the adaptive multivariate integration application, which we tested on a few test cases, and they all had similar. We observed similar behavior on them. So we're just going to show one case here below. The integral is given with the equation that you see here, or the function that you see here. And the D denotes the dimensions, which was set to 10 for our test purposes. And C sub D is the D-dimensional unit cube. And this integral actually has an integral of 1 as the exact results. And so the original program created a heap with close to 4 million individual nodes. The program using the bucket data structure had those close to 4 million nodes distributed amongst only 124 buckets. and it used 1 digit of precision for the length of the mantissa to determine the proper bucket for insertion. And so the original multivariate integration program had 980,000 direct heapify calls when deleting nodes from the heap, and an additional over 18 million recursive calls, for a total of over 19 million heapify calls, of which we eliminated. So our bucket data structure requires 0 heapify calls. And the improvements on the multivariate application, as we see here, total deletion time was close to 4 seconds. The buckets less than 1 second for a 76% improvement. Total insertion time was a little over 3 seconds for the heap code. Pretty close on for the buckets as well, so only a 5.4 improvement on this particular test case. Total insertion time and deletion time, 7 seconds for the heap, 4 seconds for the bucket code, for 42% improvement. In this case, however, the total execution time was heavily dominated by, because we did this on a machine utilizing GPU, which the GPU time for the function evaluation took 85% of the total execution time. And so this really didn't have a vast effect on how much time was spent inserting and deleting data onto the heap in the bucket data structure. So in order for us to see some improvements in this application, we'd have to have a much faster GPU or a much faster system to test on than what we had. And so the results demonstrated that the use of the bucket data structure maintained the accuracy for both applications. Here we see that the original integration program returned this 1 point, as we see here, as a total integral approximation with total absolute error estimate of 8 to the e to the minus 5. And the program with the bucket data structure is right below, which is pretty similar and close to what the original application resulted in as well. And so I had some supplemental information. I'm not sure how much time, or I'm still good on time. Okay, so so here we have some of the other test cases that we used as well. I don't show the actual equations or functions in this particular slide here, but it is within the paper. And we see the results that again, the accuracy is maintained because we see the same error estimates in the exact results here for the buckets as well as the heap, with the improvements in the improvement percentage column, and then the time for the heaps and the buckets spent for inserting and deleting. And here's another table that shows the number of heapifies upon insertions, heapifies when deleting directly, and then the recursive count for heapifying recursively, and then the total of heapifies for deleting, which is just the heapify direct plus the heapify recursive calls, and then the number of buckets that were required to maintain the nodes that were on the heap. So in conclusion, I presented to you a priority queue data structure based on buckets to group the same or similar items together, which makes the data structure more efficient than a min or max heap for the application that we discussed here. And the heap inserts these data items as separate nodes while using the heapify process to maintain the heap property, which is a vast overhead. The bucket data structure puts the data items with the same or similar keys into a linked list, and that perform operations without heapify calls. A heap in the application for adaptive and multivariate integration and the 15 puzzle was eliminated altogether. And the only cost that is required now is to actually find the bucket in which to place the particular node, which is a big old one time, which has a big old one time complexity. And the actual values of the data items are stored despite using a truncated value to determine the bucket for the multivariate integration application. So this allows the data structure to be more efficient than a min or max heap without affecting the accuracy of the results. Our data structure can be used with any application that uses a min or max heap. It can be reconfigured for a different application with minimal effort. The most difficult part of configuring the data structure for a different application is determining the priority of the data items and the proper hashing function for the buckets. And this will require someone who is familiar with the data in question at the domain or subject matter expert level. All right, so that concludes my presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you very much, James. And you feel free to answer him several questions if you have. In the presential room, we don't have any question. In the virtual participants.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
Diego,
you.
You want?
Does someone have a question?
Is there any question?
Okay.
Nobody?
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, the next one, next work to be presented is a stacking recommender system based on contextual information for fashion retails. The presenter is
Diego Diaz.
Diego Diaz. Perfect.
Yes. Are you listening?
Yes. Can you
Okay.
hear us?
Okay. Can I start it?
Yeah, when you want.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Diego Diaz. I'm professor at Federal University of São João del Rei. And today I'm going to present our paper entitled A Stack Recommender System Based on Contextual Information for Fashion Retails, which was written by our master student, Heitor Erneck. E-commerce applications are related to the use of digital communication applied to business. E-commerce is now present in the daily lives of businesses and consumers, affecting and changing how the parties involved in transactions interact. In all these applications, there is a disproportion between the availability and the ability of people to evaluate the information. So this development of data has led researchers to strive to analyze the information generated by users, modeling a personalized profile according to their preferences. These profiles are used to feed predictive models that aim to match users with available items in a specific domain. Models that aim to match users with available items in a specific domain. Models that aim to match users. I have a problem. I'm listening what I'm saying. Some kind of delay.
Yeah, sorry, I mute James.
Okay, just mute. Okay, thank you. So to illustrate the importance of a recommender system, we can mention the profit gains observed in several businesses. For example, 35% increase in sales at DVD retailer, and at eBay, a 6% increase in profit was observed in implementation of new recommendation methods, something like that. So the recent success of distinct e-commerce system has driven many fashion companies into the online marketplace, allowing consumers to quickly and easily access a worldwide network of brands. However, to succeed in this scenario, it's necessary to provide a tailored, personalized, and reliable fashion shopping experience. Unfortunately, current solutions on marketing have provided a general approach to push and suggest the most popular or purchased items in most cases. More recently, we have observed a scenario in which online marketing has been growing at a swift pace in recent years, the luxury fashion. This growth is associated with the behavioral change of consumers in the traditional fashion industry, who now have quick and easy access to a worldwide network to retailers of major luxury fashion brands. It's necessary to provide a tailored, personalized, and reliable fashion shopping experience to succeed in this scenario, which makes the whole of recommender system even more important in the user journey. allowing customers to discover products that suit their style, complement their choice, and challenging them with bold new ideas. So here we have our goals, the goals of our research. And this paper, we propose a solution that aims to generalize to different fashion recommender systems by combining different context information. First, customer product interaction. Second, items characteristics. And last, third one, customer behavior. All context information is equally important for the fashion recommendation domain and must be considered when proposing solutions. A complete system should consider at least 3 types of information. The first one, those related to the user-item interaction. For example, day and week of interaction. The second one, those related to the items, material, color, size, and price, for example. And the third one, those related to the users. For example, number of interactions and number of items consumed. In this sense, the main approach related to fashion recommendation already use the information to model the user's interest in the available items and thus make their recommendations. Our proposal consists of a simple and effective approach to combine multiple data instances known as multi-layer perceptron, MLP. And MLP is a class of feed-forward artificial neural network that consists of at least 3 layers of nodes. The first one, an input layer. The second one, some hidden layers. And the third, an output layer. Except for the input nodes, each node it's a neuron that uses a nonlinear activation function. And each architecture is highly dependent on the problem to be studied, and its results can change sharply according to its variation. In this case, it's essential to perform a hyperparameter search method. Moreover, MLP uses a supervised learn technique called backpropagation, and its multiple layers and nonlinear activation distinguish MLP from a linear perceptron. Here we have the data set. We use 2 Kresge data sets for our experiments, the Amazon Fashion and Amazon Clothing. And without any special processing, pre-processing, these 2 data sets have a large portion of users with few interactions. So this characteristic is not effective for assertive quantitative evaluation of recommendation systems. Thus, for a more diverse evaluation, we performed a filtering process in the 2 data sets, where we remove the users with less than n interactions from each dataset. For evaluating 2 important recommendation scenarios, we use n equal 5 to evaluate the dataset with users with little and much knowledge, and n equal 10 to evaluate users that contain a reasonable number of interactions. Furthermore, to simplify the application of the methods and evaluation, the users' ratings, which are integer values from 1 to 5, were transformed to 1 if the rating was equal or more than 4 and 0. Table 1 here, we present the main statistical measure about the created data sets. It's important to highlight the height sparsity index, a remarkable characteristic of the fashion domain. The performance of each item on the recommended list is evaluated in this paper by 3 distinct metrics. Hit ratio, HR, it represents the number of items recommended correctly based on the set of items consumed by the target users. The mean reciprocal rank, MRR, is a statistical measure to evaluate the user's effort to find item relevant to them. And the closer to the top of the ranking, the correct items are for a user. The closer the MMR is to 1, and consequently, the better the solution. And the last one, normalized discounted cumulative gain, NDCG. That is a statistical measure to evaluate the quality of a ranking. The NDCG value is high when the items of higher estimated relevance appear higher up the actual ranking. So we compared our proposal with several algorithms commonly used in the fashion scenarios, like Randall, Popular, SVD, SVD++, BillionNet, NoIMF, and like GCN. Here are some results. First, we compared the results achieved by our proposal with the result obtained by the other strategies, following the methodology presented in the previous slides. Then we compared different combinations of the information and strategies considered in our proposal to evaluate each component impact on the final result of the stacking proposal. So here in this table, we present on the dataset according to the evaluation policy previously described. Evaluation the baseline is previously selected for this work. We can note that the non-personalized algorithms tend to behave better when we apply less aggressive filtering on the collection data with n equal 5. Such approaches keep many users with little information. Thus, techniques that exploit global user interest may be favored in this scenario. However, in the other scenarios, we see the superiority of traditional methods and recently applied strategies in the fashion retail scenario. In general, it's also possible to observe that our proposed method presents us significantly better results when compared to all baselines. Consider all evaluated metrics and datasets. In some scenarios, such as the Amazon fashion datasets with n equal 10, our proposal achieves gains of 80% for MRR, 70% for NDCG, and 180% for hits. These results validate our primary hypothesis that combining multiple pieces of information is effective for the fashion domain. Moreover, even in highly sparse scenarios, our strategy can also present the best results due to its ability to compose multiple information for user preference prediction. Here, we present an experiment in which we vary the combinations over inputs to the proposed stacking method. The main goal here of this experiment was to identify the explanations for the result obtained through the method and what are the primary impact factors for the final result. There will always be one of the methods in the input sets, like GCN or Popular. And here we can see the impact of including contextual information about users on the learning of our stacking model with this analysis. Although there are some cases where the combination of method without context is compactive with the best combinators, overall, the best values for each metric are obtaining user contextual information. This occurs because the information can guide our neural network to more assertive decisions about the preference of these users. Something interesting to mention is also the applicability of popular strategies that can always be used with other recommendation algorithms. And furthermore, by combining non-personalized and personalized strategies with contextual information, our proposal stands out regardless of the application scenario. As concluding remarks, this paper presents a fashion recommendation proposal that combines different contextual information of users, items, in their interactions with other recommendation models through a stacking process. For dealing with distinct information, we propose using models based on neural networks, since these models can combine attributes at multiple levels. And we instantiate the first solution that uses an NLP with only 2 recommendation models, a non-customized model named Most Popular, and the personalized method based on like GCN. And for last, we evaluate our proposal on 2 Amazon data sets, comparing it with 7 state-of-the-art proposals in fashion recommendation, and having better results than all. And here some acknowledgements. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Diego. And does anyone have any questions? Yes. Yes, you can come here.
Guys, if you have any technical questions, please send an email to Heitor, the first author, the student responsible by the research. We'll be glad to answer you.
I don't understand. We have here one question. You can ask.
Thank you for presentation. I have only one question. You showed 2 methods with n is equal 5 and n is equal 10. So what do you think? Is it influenced if you will use another range? I mean that another n, not so like 5 and 10, and maybe 100 or more, and is it can influence for the results of your research?
Yes, we chose the value of n, which was an empirical choice, and we didn't test any others values for n, but we intend to test some other approaches, even some different from neural networks. And as I said, if someone has some other technical questions like that, please send an email to Heitor, the first author. I think he will be the most the person who will know how to really answer this question.
Okay, thank you very much. And
Thank you, everyone.
does anyone have any other question? Here we don't have more question in the virtual
Okay, thank you,
room.
everyone.
Well, feel free to ask. No question? So, thank you. Well, the next work to be present is Computerized Adaptative Testing, a unified approach under Markov decision process. The work has been carried out by Patricia Gilabert and Valdine Freire, and I guess Patricia is going to present the work. Patricia, are you there?
Yes.
Patricia, I think we cannot hear you. Are you speaking?
Yes. One moment.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
The video too?
Yes, we are seeing the camera and the slides, but not here in the video.
Patricia, can you hear us? We cannot hear your video in this case.
Okay.
Well, I can hear you a little bit now.
Mm. Okay.
Well,
Hi, my name is Patricia. I study at University of São Paulo, and my paper is Computerized Adaptive Testing, a unified approach under Markov decision process. Introduction. Computerized adaptive testing, latent rate estimator, efficiency, precision, and constraints, CAT as an optimization problem, Markov decision process, partial observable MDP, CAT as a POMDP, approximating a CAT by MDP, experimental result, and conclusion. Introduction. Computerized adaptive testing is an approach to assessment that tailors the administration of test items to the trait level of the examiner. The item response theory can be used to find the probability of an examiner to score one item as a function of his/her trait and therefore provide a Courier estimator. Markov decision process models problem where an agent makes sequential decisions and the results of these actions are probabilistic. The agent's objective is to choose a sequence of actions so that the system acts optimally according to previously defined criteria. We show how MGP can model different formalisms for catch. In every catch, we identify at least 6 components: an item bank, entry rule, response model, estimation mechanism, item select criterion, and stop criterion. In general catch scheme, we have start of the test, select of the item for the examine, respondent's response, score calculation, stop criterion. If the stop criterion is satisfied, then the test is over. If the stop criterion is not satisfied, then a new item is selected and the test continues until the stop criterion is satisfied. The figure simulates a test using catch. On the axis, we have the number of questions, and the axis we have the item difficulty. The continuous line is the examiner's true score. The first item selected is of medium difficulty and the examiner gets it right. An item of greater difficulty is selected and the examiner gets it right. A new more difficulty item is selected and the examiner misses. The next item is easier than the previous and the examiner gets it right. The process continues until has converged to the true score. Latent trait estimator. Given an examine theta and a sequence of any answers xn, the latent trait theta can be estimated by Bayesian procedure or maximum likelihood. We consider here a Bayesian estimator based on expected a posteriori, where f theta is the a priori distribution on the latent trait theta, usually consider the standard normal distribution. The ML estimator estimates the latent trait by theta, where the likelihood is given by efficiency, precision, and constraints. If the objective of the catch is to ranking examines, a common evaluation for precision is the mean score error. Efficiency is usually evaluating by the length of catch. Efficiency may also be evaluating by the time spent by the examiner because some questions may require more time than others. Catch may pressure precision and efficiency under some restriction. The commonest restriction is regarding question repetition. In a test, question can only be applied once. Catch as an optimization problem. Given a bank of items Q, we first model the catch problem as a process. Examine theta is drawn from distribution f theta, while examiner does not decide to stop the test. At any stage t, 1, 2, the examiner chooses a question QT and submits to the examiner. By answering the question, The examiner generates a result xt. The examiner estimates the latent trait theta true and the estimation theta query. The result of the catch process is a random history H, theta Q1, X1, Q2, X2, and Qn, Xn theta query. And the optimal examiner is obtained from the following optimization problem. U is an objective function. Markov decision process. We consider a special case of Markov decision process, the stochastic shortage path problem. A SSP is defined by a tuple SAPC S0 G. S are the possible states, A are possible actions, P is the transition function, C is the cost function. S0 is the initial state and G is the set of goal state. A SSP defines a process of an agent interacting with an environment and at all times step t. The agent observes a state st. The agent chooses an action at. The agent pays a cost ct and the process moves to the new state st+1. The process ends when a goal state s are researched. Transitions and costs present Markov's property, and they both depend only on the current state st and the chosen action at. The objective of a SSP is to find an optimal policy that minimizes the expected cumulative cost. Partial observable MGP. A formulation to sequence decision problem more generic than MGPs or SSPs is the partial observable MGP, POMGP. In a POMGP, the agent observes the process state mediated by a probabilistic observation function, or a POMGP defines a process of an agent interacting with an environment and at all times step t. The agent makes an observation OT. The agent chooses an action AT. The agent pays a cost CT and the process moves to a new state ST+1. In a POMGP, the optimal policy must consider the history for the current time step t. Initially, an examiner is drawn from a probability distribution F theta, then give any questions. The examiner observes the answer for that question, which depends on the question itself and the latent trait theta of the examiner. However, the examiner never observes directly the latent trait theta. Catch can be seen as a POMGP by consider the state space as the tuple theta qt, the latent trait, and the last question. Consider the action space as the set of questions in the item bank, plus a termination action. Consider deterministic transitions. First, theta never changes and the question qt changes follow the examiner choices. Consider the observation of the process as the result of examiner answering the last question and the catch response model. The figure shows a scheme connection catch and GPO-MGP. There, the belief state is obtained from a posteriori distribution based on Bayesian method. Next, we show how POMGPs can represent different formulations of catch. E is the belief state, while tau is the model to generate the a posteriori belief state. Approximating a catch by MGP. We consider a traditional catch problem, fixed length with dichotomic item bank. It is possible to build a catch based on the item response theory, a mathematical model that describes the probability of an individual to score an item as a function of the latent trait level. We consider the logistic model with 3 parameters and a bank of 45 items, calibrated from a national mathematics examiner from Brazil, was used in our experiment. One way of recovering Markov property in a process is to consider augment state or belief state. The a posteriori distribution by following Bayes method is exactly the belief state of your catch POMGP. Usually, a catch does not repeat an item in the exam. In this case, the number of states is exponential in the number of questions. To reduce the number of states, we allow the catch to repeat questions. That answers to questions are probabilistic. Therefore, the user may answer differently for the same questions. We consider the catch optimization problem of minimize MSE with fixed length n with repeat questions. Experiment result. We consider 2 score functions from catch literature, feature information, and minimizing the expected posteriori variance. FI is well known in the literature and is also the cheapest method. MEPV is a costly score function which considers the next potential belief states given every possible questions in the item bank. We define policies based on each score function and evaluation then under the MGP framework. Score functions are shorter. In fact, they do not even take into account the fixed length horizon n. We make use of an MGP algorithm to obtain an optimal policy for every length between 1 and 45 questions. Every other policies we compare against this good standard. We plot the difference between the root MSE, RMSE for every policy and the good standard. Besides FI and MEPV policies, we also plot optimal policies behavior for fixed length, 15, 30, and 45. Note that optimal policies may be far from gold standard during first questions, but in the end, 15, 30, or 45 questions, the gold standard is research. Because policies based on score functions chooses questions that gives return immediately, they are also close to the good standard, but never is optimal. Despite score function not being optimal, we can see that the largest difference is not more than 0.01. Conclusion, we formulated catch formalisms as MGPs and showed in an experiment that despite being optimal, the gain with MGPs may not compensate since suboptimal solution must be considered in real scenarios. However, the formulation as MGPs allows to formulate catch as optimization problem and describe many catch formulations under the same framework. We believe that such a framework and experiments as the one here showed may elucidate the limits of a myriad of methods in the catch literature, mainly regarding catch under constraints. Recently, we showed that fixed length stop criterion has great advantages against other stop criteria. With this framework, we can investigate how it compares against optimally under different evaluations. References. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patricia. Does anyone have any question here? No one? Well, in the virtual room, feel free to ask her whatever you want. No one? So thank you very much, Patricia.
Thank you.
And well, the last work to be presented in this session is effectively and efficiently supporting visual big data analytics over big sequential data, an innovative data science approach, which was created by Alfredo Cuchocrea, Majid Abbasi, Carson Kaliun, Zhang Wen, and Fang Jiang. The presenter, I guess, will be is the presenter here in the session. Alfredo, Majid, Carson, Jan, and Fang Jiang. No presenter of this work. So, if there is no presenter, the session finishes here. And well, thank you all of you for attending to the session, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.